I set my coffee mug down on the kitchen counter and just listened. My son Marcus was standing by the window, his wife Vanessa beside him, both of them talking about square footage and market rates like I wasn't even in the room. That night, after they'd finally left, I opened Catherine's folder from the safe and called the lawyer in Wyoming about activating what she'd called our escape plan. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me back up so you understand how I got here, and more importantly, who everyone is in this mess, because it matters. I'm Richard Patterson, 67 years old, retired civil engineer, spent 42 years designing water treatment systems across the Midwest. My wife Catherine passed away 6 weeks ago from heart disease. She was 65. We'd been married for 43 years. We have 2 children, Marcus, 41, who works as an investment banker in downtown Chicago, and is married to Vanessa, and Diane, 38, a marketing executive, married to a guy named Brad who sells commercial real estate. Then there's my nephew, Tommy. He's 26, a wildlife photographer. His mother was my younger sister, Linda, who died in a car accident when Tommy was 7. Catherine and I raised him alongside our own kids. To me, he's just as much my son as Marcus is. That's the family tree. Keep it straight, because it gets complicated. The day of Catherine's funeral was cold. February in Chicago, the kind of cold that gets into your bones and stays there. St. Michael's Church was full. Catherine had been a nurse for 38 years before retiring, and the community loved her. I sat in the front pew between Marcus and Diane. Tommy sat on my other side, his hand on my shoulder during the eulogy. What I remember most about that day wasn't the service. It was afterward, at the house, during the reception. I was in the kitchen making coffee for guests when I heard Marcus and Vanessa talking in the hallway. They didn't know I was there. The house has to be worth at least $850, maybe $900,000, Vanessa was saying. And you said there's the retirement accounts, the savings, Mom's pension, Marcus replied. That stops now that she's gone, but Dad's is solid. Plus, whatever life insurance there was. I stood there with the coffee pot in my hand, frozen. We need to talk to him about downsizing, Vanessa continued. This place is way too big for him alone. He should sell, move into a condo. The market's hot right now. Give it a week, Marcus said. Then we'll bring it up. They didn't give it a week. 3 days later, Marcus showed up at the house with a folder full of real estate listings. Dad, we need to talk about your living situation, he said, spreading brochures across the dining room table. Senior apartments, assisted living facilities, condos in retirement communities. I'm 67, not 90, I told him, and I'm not going anywhere. Be realistic, Vanessa chimed in. She'd come with him, apparently. This house is 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms. The yard alone is half an acre. The maintenance, the property taxes, it's too much for one person. I've been maintaining this house for 40 years, I said. I think I can manage. It's not just about managing, Marcus said, using his banker voice, the one he probably used with difficult clients. It's about being smart with your assets. You sell now, you could clear $700,000 after the mortgage. Invest that properly. Combined with your pension and Social Security, you'd be very comfortable in a nice 2-bedroom condo. And what happens to the equity I'd be giving up? I asked. Marcus and Vanessa exchanged a look. Well, eventually that would be part of the estate, Marcus said carefully, which Diane and I would inherit. So, really, we're just talking about timing. There it was. The house wasn't too big for me. They wanted to liquidate it now so they could get their hands on the money sooner. I'm not selling, I said. Diane arrived the next day with Brad. Same conversation, different approach. Daddy, we're just worried about you, Diane said, using the voice she probably used in her marketing pitches. You've been through trauma. You're not thinking clearly. This house has so many memories of Mom. Wouldn't it be easier to start fresh somewhere new? Every memory of your mother in this house is precious to me, I said. Why would I want to leave that? Because holding on to the past isn't healthy, Brad said. He had this habit of leaning back in his chair with his hands behind his head, like he owned the place. My therapist says that after loss, people need to make big changes to process grief properly. Your therapist? I repeated. Certified professional, Brad said. Charges $300 an hour, so you know he's good. Over the next 2 weeks, it got worse. Marcus hired an appraiser without asking me. The guy showed up at my door with a clipboard, saying Marcus had sent him to evaluate the property. I sent him away. Diane called a moving company and got an estimate for packing up the house. Vanessa started coming by during the day while I was out, measuring rooms and taking pictures. I caught her in Catherine's sewing room once, photographing the built-in cabinets Catherine had loved. "What are you doing?" I asked from the doorway. She jumped. "Oh, Richard. I was just thinking about staging ideas. You know, for when you list the house." "I'm not listing the house." "Not yet," she said, with this smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "But you will, and when you do, we want to make sure you get top dollar." The breaking point came 3 weeks after Catherine's funeral. I came home from the grocery store to find Marcus, Diane, Vanessa, and Brad all sitting in my living room. Marcus had used his old house key to let himself in. "We need to have a family meeting," Marcus announced. "In my house? Without my permission?" I set the grocery bags down. "Technically, it's our house, too," Diane said. "Eventually." "Sit down, Dad," Marcus said. "We've made some decisions." "Decisions," I repeated. Vanessa pulled out a folder, neat and organized. "We've consulted with an estate attorney. Given your age and Mom's recent passing, it makes sense to start transitioning assets now. Avoid probate, minimize estate taxes. All very standard. We've found you a beautiful condo in Oak Park," Diane added quickly. 2 bedrooms, 2 baths, all 1 floor. There's a community center, a shuttle to the grocery store. "We've scheduled the listing for next month," Marcus said. "April 1st, spring market's the best time to sell. We're using Vanessa's colleague, top producer in the area. She estimates we'll have offers within 2 weeks." I looked at them. My children, my son-in-law and daughter-in-law, sitting in the home their mother and I had built together, dividing it up like I was already dead. "Get out," I said quietly. "Dad, be reasonable. Get out of my house. We're trying to help you." "You're trying to help yourselves to my money," I said, "and your mother's memory. Now get out before I call the police and have you removed for trespassing." They left, but not before Marcus said, "We'll be back when you're thinking more clearly." After they'd gone, I stood in the empty living room for a long time. Then I went upstairs to the bedroom, to the closet where Catherine kept her important papers. She'd always been more organized than me, everything labeled and filed properly. I found what I was looking for in a fireproof box on the top shelf. A manila folder marked, "For Richard, open after I'm gone." Inside was a letter in Catherine's handwriting, dated 6 months before her death. "My dearest Richard," it began. "If you're reading this, I'm gone, and I imagine our children are circling like vultures. I'm sorry I'm not there to see the looks on their faces when you finally tell them the truth. Here's what you need to know." I read the letter 3 times. Then I read the documents she'd included. Property deeds, bank statements, trust documents, a timeline of steps to take, names and phone numbers of lawyers, accountants, real estate agents in Wyoming, photographs of a place I hadn't seen in 45 years. Catherine had planned everything. The next morning, I called the first number on her list, a lawyer named Sarah Chen in Jackson, Wyoming. "Mr. Patterson," she said when I identified myself, "I've been expecting your call. Mrs. Patterson established the trust 2 years ago. Everything's ready when you are." "Walk me through it," I said. What Catherine had done was this. 3 years ago, when her heart condition was first diagnosed, she'd started planning. She knew, even if I didn't want to admit it, that her time was limited. And she knew our children well enough to predict exactly what would happen after she died. So she'd taken action, quietly, carefully. The house we'd honeymooned at in Wyoming 45 years ago had belonged to her uncle. When he died 15 years ago, he'd left it to Catherine in his will. It was a 480-acre ranch in the Teton Valley, about 40 minutes from Jackson. Catherine had kept it all these years, renting it out to a local family for minimal rent in exchange for maintenance. I'd known about it vaguely, but had never paid much attention. It seemed like a sentimental keepsake, nothing more. But 2 years ago, Catherine had quietly stopped renting it. She'd hired contractors to renovate the main house completely. New roof, new plumbing, new electrical, modern kitchen, updated bathrooms. She'd had the barn converted into a photography studio and darkroom. The old bunkhouse had been turned into a guest cottage. She'd established a trust, funded with proceeds from selling some stock she'd inherited from her parents, to cover property taxes and maintenance for the next 20 years. Then, she'd set up a second trust. Into this one, over the course of 2 years, she'd gradually transferred money from our joint savings account, small amounts at a time, nothing that would trigger my attention when I glanced at bank statements. By the time she died, she'd moved $400,000 into that trust, leaving just enough in our regular accounts to look normal. The Chicago house? It had a second mortgage I didn't know about. Catherine had taken it out quietly 2 years ago for $150,000. She'd used that money, plus the money from selling her parents' old house, to fund the Wyoming renovations and the trusts. The payments on the second mortgage were set up as automatic withdrawals from an account I never checked. What this meant, the Chicago house that Marcus and Diane were so eager to sell had almost no equity. Between the original mortgage and the second mortgage, there was maybe $50,000 of actual value there. Everything else Catherine had quietly moved to Wyoming. She left you a way out, Sarah Chen told me on the phone. And she left instructions. You're to transfer ownership of the Chicago house to Marcus and Diane immediately. Give it to them. Let them have it. Just give it to them? I said. Along with the mortgages. Both of them. They'll be responsible for the debt. The letter from Mrs. Patterson suggests you tell them it's their inheritance. Early. She thought they'd be so excited about getting the house that they wouldn't read the fine print until it was too late. I started laughing. I couldn't help it. Catherine, even in death, knew exactly what she was doing. What about the retirement accounts? I asked. Mrs. Patterson left those alone, Sarah said. They're still in your name. She suggested you might want to name your nephew Tommy as the primary beneficiary instead of Marcus and Diane. But that's your choice. And the ranch in Wyoming? Fully paid off. Completely renovated. Ready for occupancy. The trust covers all expenses. You could move in tomorrow if you wanted to. I thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. Set it up, I said. The next 2 weeks were careful choreography. I couldn't let Marcus and Diane know I was planning anything. I had to act like a grieving widower who was slowly coming around to their point of view. Marcus called to check in every few days. I let my resistance soften gradually. Yes, maybe the house was too big. Yes, maybe a change would be good. I let him think he was wearing me down. Meanwhile, I was packing. Just the essentials at first. Clothes, personal items, Catherine's jewelry, the photo albums. Tommy helped me. He was the only one I told. They're really doing this? He said when I explained what was happening. He'd come over under the pretense of helping me clean out the garage. They really are, I said. And Aunt Catherine knew they would? I showed him the letter. Tommy read it, his jaw getting tighter with every paragraph. When he finished, he looked up at me. She was a genius, he said quietly. She knew our family better than I wanted to admit, I said. What about me? Tommy asked. Am I supposed to go to Wyoming with you? Your Aunt Catherine left specific instructions about you, I said. There's a studio in the converted barn. She had it designed for photography. Darkroom, natural lighting, the works. She wanted you to have it. Tommy's eyes got wet. She did that for me? She loved you like you were her own son, I said. You were the only one who visited her in the hospital every single day. The only one who called just to talk. She noticed, Tommy. She noticed everything. We packed carefully over the next week, rented a storage unit across town, and gradually moved things there. Catherine's china, the furniture that had belonged to my parents, books, artwork, anything with sentimental value. We left the big stuff, the obvious stuff, anything Marcus and Diane would expect to be there. The close call came on a Tuesday. I just loaded a box of Catherine's nursing textbooks into my car when Vanessa pulled into the driveway. Richard, she called out. Perfect timing. I wanted to talk to you about the kitchen remodel. The kitchen remodel, I repeated, closing the trunk. For after you move out, she said brightly. Marcus and I are thinking of keeping the house instead of selling. Use it as an investment property or maybe a vacation rental. But the kitchen is so dated. I was thinking white subway tile. Maybe a waterfall island. You're planning to remodel my kitchen, I said slowly. Well, it'll be our kitchen soon, she said. Marcus says you've agreed to sign the house over to him and Diane next month. I hadn't agreed to anything, but I just smiled. We're still discussing it, I said. What's in the box? She was looking at my trunk. Old books, I said. Thought I'd donate them to the library. Decluttering, like you suggested. She bought it. That's wonderful, Richard. It's so healthy that you're letting go. If she'd looked closely, she would have seen that my car was packed full. But she didn't look. She never really looked at me at all. The final meeting happened 4 weeks to the day after Catherine's funeral. I'd called it myself, asked Marcus and Diane to come over, told them I'd made a decision about the house. They arrived within 5 minutes of each other, like they'd coordinated. Vanessa and Brad came too, naturally. Tommy was already there, sitting quietly in the corner. They barely acknowledged him. I've thought about what you said, I told them, sitting in my leather armchair, the one Catherine had given me for my 60th birthday. About the house being too big, about making a fresh start. You're right. It's time for a change. Marcus and Diane exchanged victorious glances. I'm going to sign the house over to the two of you, I continued. Split 50-50. You'll take ownership immediately. That's wonderful, Dad, Diane said. This is really the best decision. I think so too, I said. I pulled out the folder Sarah Chen had prepared. The deed transfer documents are all here. You'll need to sign as well, accepting the transfer and all associated responsibilities. Associated responsibilities? Marcus asked. The property taxes, the homeowner's insurance, the mortgages, all of that transfers with the deed, I said. Standard procedure. Mortgages? Vanessa's smile faltered. Plural? There's the original mortgage. About $200,000 remaining, I said. And the second mortgage, $150,000. The lawyer explained it all in these documents. I watched them read. Watched Marcus's face go from confused to pale. Watched Diane's hand start to shake as she flipped through pages. This house has a $350,000 debt? Marcus said. You said it was almost paid off. I said no such thing, I replied calmly. You assumed it was paid off. You never actually asked to see the mortgage statements. Who takes out a second mortgage at your age? Vanessa demanded. Your mother did, I said. 2 years ago. She had her reasons. This is insane, Diane said. With property taxes and insurance, this place costs $4,500 a month to maintain. We can't afford that. Then sell it, I suggested. Like you were planning to anyway. Sell it? Brad laughed bitterly. After transfer fees and realtor commissions, they'd be lucky to clear $100,000. Split 2 ways? That's $50,000 each for a house you've been telling us is worth almost $1 million. Market fluctuations, I said with a shrug. Can't predict these things? There's something else going on here, Marcus said, his banker instincts finally kicking in. Where's the rest of the money? Mom's savings? The retirement accounts? The life insurance? The life insurance was a $50,000 policy that barely covered the funeral expenses, I said. The retirement accounts are mine, in my name alone. They'll stay that way. And Mom's savings? Diane pressed. She spent them, I said simply, over the last 2 years. Medical bills, some charitable donations, personal expenses. It's all documented if you'd like to see the bank statements. That wasn't technically a lie. Catherine had spent the savings, just not on what they assumed. You're not keeping the house either, Marcus said suddenly. Are you? You're going somewhere? Smart boy, my son. Too late, but smart. I'm retiring, I said, leaving Chicago. I've already closed out the accounts at First National, transferred everything to a bank in Wyoming. I'm moving next week. Wyoming? Diane said. Why Wyoming? Your mother and I honeymooned there, I said. Seemed like a fitting place for a fresh start. So you're just leaving us with a debt-ridden house and disappearing? Vanessa's voice was shrill now. I'm giving you exactly what you asked for, I said. The house. Early inheritance. Just like you wanted. The fact that it's not worth what you hoped isn't my problem. This is fraud, Marcus said. We'll sue. Mom couldn't have just hidden $300,000 without my knowledge? I finished. She could, and she did. Her money, her decisions, all legal, all documented. Sarah Chen in Jackson can send you copies of everything if you'd like. She's very thorough. I stood up. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have packing to finish. The movers come Monday. You can pick up the keys from Sarah Chen's office. She's handling the deed transfer remotely. You can't do this, Diane said, and there were actual tears in her eyes now, but I suspected they were tears of rage, not sorrow. I already have, I said. Tommy, you ready? Tommy stood. He'd been quiet the whole time, just watching. Now he picked up 2 duffel bags I'd staged by the door. You're taking him? Marcus said. Of course you are. Your little charity case. Tommy's more family to me than you've been in years, I said. He's coming with me. The ranch has plenty of space. Ranch? Diane said. What ranch? But I was done explaining. Tommy and I walked out the front door of that house for the last time. I heard shouting behind us, Vanessa and Brad yelling at Marcus and Diane, everyone yelling at everyone, but it faded as we got into my car. How do you feel? Tommy asked as we drove away. Free, I said. The movers came that Monday, like I'd said, but not to the Chicago house. They went to the storage unit where Tommy and I had been hiding everything that mattered. They loaded it all into a truck and drove it to Wyoming. Marcus and Diane did try to contest the deed transfer. Sarah Chen called me 2 days after I'd arrived in Wyoming to tell me they'd retained a lawyer. It went nowhere. Catherine had documented everything meticulously. Every withdrawal, every transaction, every decision had a paper trail showing it was her money, her choice. The lawyer Marcus hired took one look at the trust documents and advised them to drop it. They kept the Chicago house for 3 months, trying to find a buyer who'd pay enough to make it worthwhile. Eventually, they sold it at a loss and split the remaining $53,000. Diane sent me a single text message. Hope you're happy. I was, actually. The ranch in Wyoming was everything Catherine's photographs had promised. 480 acres in the Teton Valley, with the mountains rising up to the east like ancient guardians. The main house was a sprawling log home with huge windows facing the sunrise. Catherine had overseen every detail of the renovation. The kitchen had granite counters and professional-grade appliances because she knew I liked to cook. The master bedroom had a reading nook because she knew I'd need somewhere quiet to think. The study had built-in bookshelves already filled with books she'd had shipped there over the past year, ones I'd mentioned wanting to read. It was like she'd built me a whole new life and left it waiting for me to find. Tommy moved into the converted barn. The photography studio had everything he needed. Professional lighting, backdrop systems, a proper darkroom with temperature-controlled chemical storage. Within a month, he'd set up a freelance business photographing wildlife and selling prints online. He was happier than I'd ever seen him. I spent my days learning the land. There was a creek that ran through the property, cold and clear from mountain snowmelt, a grove of aspens that turned gold in September, elk that came down from the high country in the evenings. I bought a horse, a gentle old gelding named Copper, and rode the fence lines learning every corner of my new home. At night, I'd sit on the back porch with a cup of coffee and look at the stars. You could see so many stars out there, away from the city lights. Catherine and I had sat under these same stars 45 years ago, young and newly married, talking about the life we'd build together. I found her last letter 3 months after moving in. It was tucked into a copy of her favorite book, The Yearling, on the shelf in the study. Richard, it said, if you're reading this, you made it. You're free. I'm so proud of you. I know you're probably feeling guilty, like you abandoned our children. Don't. They abandoned us first, years ago. When was the last time Marcus called just to talk? When did Diane last visit without wanting something? Tommy is your son now, the one who chose to stay when everyone else left. Love him like he deserves. Live the life we always dreamed about. Watch the sunrise from that porch. Ride through the aspens in September. Feed the elk that come down in the evenings. And know that every single choice I made was so you could have this. I love you. I'll always love you. Don't you dare waste this gift being sad, Catherine. I read it sitting in the leather chair she'd had shipped to Wyoming, the same one from our Chicago living room, and I cried. Not from sadness, from gratitude, for 43 years with a woman who knew me better than I knew myself, who planned for my future even when she knew she wouldn't be there to share it. Tommy found me there an hour later. "You okay?" he asked. I showed him the letter. He read it, wiping his own eyes by the end. "She really loved you," he said. "She loved both of us," I said. "That's why we're here." A year later, Marcus called. Out of the blue on a Tuesday morning, I was fixing fence posts on the south pasture when my phone rang. "Dad," he said. His voice was different, smaller. "How are you?" "I'm well," I said. "You?" "Fine. Good. Busy with work." A pause. "Vanessa and I are getting divorced." "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, and I meant it. Whatever else, I didn't wish unhappiness on anyone. "She was only with me for the money," Marcus said bitterly. "After the house thing fell through, after it became clear I wasn't getting a big inheritance, she changed. Started fights about everything. Eventually, she just left." I didn't say what I was thinking. That Catherine had probably known that too. "Diane and Brad are having problems too," Marcus continued. "Turns out when you marry for money and the money doesn't come through, there's not much left." "Why are you calling, Marcus?" I asked gently. "I wanted to say I'm sorry," he said, "for how we treated you, how we treated Mom's memory. You were right. We were vultures." I sat down on a fence rail, looking out at the mountains. "I appreciate that," I said. "Is there any chance?" He started, then stopped. "Could I come visit? See where you're living? I'd like to talk. Really talk. Not about money or inheritance. Just talk." I thought about it. Thought about Catherine's letter. About the years of neglect. About the way they descended on me like predators after her funeral. But I also thought about the fact that he'd called. That he'd apologized. That people can change. Sometimes. If given the chance. "Call me next week," I said. "We'll figure out a time. I don't know if Marcus will actually visit. Maybe he will, maybe he won't. But I left the door open because that's what Catherine would have done. She was always better at forgiveness than I was. Tommy and I celebrated his 27th birthday last month with a bonfire by the creek. He'd just sold his first major photo collection to a nature magazine. We cooked steaks over the fire and talked about his mother, my sister Linda, and how proud she'd be of the man he'd become. "Do you miss Chicago?" he asked me. I looked around at the property, at the mountains going purple in the sunset, at the life Catherine had built for me brick by brick, decision by decision, knowing she wouldn't be here to see it. "I miss your aunt," I said. "Every day, but Chicago? No. This is home now." And it was. The ranch, the mountains, the quiet mornings and star-filled nights. Tommy in his studio, me learning to be a rancher at 67. A life I never planned, but one that fit better than anything I'd left behind. Catherine had given me exactly what I needed. Not just an escape from greedy children, but permission to start over, to build something new, to be more than just a father, or a husband, or a retired engineer. To be myself, whoever that turned out to be. I still talk to her sometimes, out loud, when I'm riding the fence lines, or sitting on the porch in the evening. I tell her about the elk herd that's grown to 23 head, about the book I'm writing, a technical memoir about water systems engineering, about Tommy's success and the life he's building, about Marcus's call and the possibility of reconciliation. Though I'm not holding my breath, I tell her thank you, every day. Thank you for knowing me well enough to save me. Thank you for planning my escape when I didn't even know I needed one. Thank you for giving me the courage to walk away from people who loved my money more than they loved me. The sun's setting now as I finish my coffee. Tomorrow I'm riding up to the north pasture to check on the water system there. It's been making a funny sound, and after 40 years as an engineer, I can't ignore funny sounds. Tommy's going with me. He wants to photograph the wildflowers that are blooming in the high meadow. It's a good life. A quiet life. Not the one I expected when I married Catherine 43 years ago, but maybe a better one. Simpler. More honest. She always did know best.